What would you do if someone stole £80,000 from you? Most people would call the police, maybe hire a lawyer, or write it off as a painful lesson. But Colin Coats wasn't most people. When this former millionaire IT executive discovered he'd been scammed, his response was so brutal, so calculated, and so disturbing that it would shock even hardened criminals. The question isn't just what he did. It's how someone transforms from a successful family man earning £200,000 a year into one of Scotland's most notorious murderers. By the end of this story, you'll understand why some debts should never be collected. But here's what makes this case even more chilling. Was Colin truly the mastermind, or was there more to this story that never came to light? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Our story unfolds in the bustling city of Glasgow, Scotland, during the spring of 2011. At the centre of this dark tale is Lynda Spence, a 27-year-old woman who portrayed herself as a successful financial consultant and investment advisor. On the surface, she appeared to be living the dream, running her own mortgage brokerage firm and managing property investments throughout Glasgow. However, beneath this carefully crafted facade lay a web of lies, debt, and dangerous criminal connections. The reality was far different from what Lynda presented to the world. She was drowning in bankruptcy, owed substantial sums to some very dangerous individuals, and had built her entire lifestyle on fraudulent schemes. Her criminal activities had not gone unnoticed by law enforcement, who were actively investigating multiple fraud cases connected to her operations. Lynda's personal life was equally complicated. She had formed a romantic relationship with an Albanian criminal whose activities included some of the most serious crimes imaginable, including human trafficking. Through these dangerous associations, Lynda became entangled with two Scottish criminals who would ultimately seal her fate. Philip Wade and Colin Coats, both deeply involved in the illegal substance trade. Colin Coats presents one of the most dramatic transformations from success to criminal brutality that you'll ever encounter. Born in September 1970 in Glasgow, Colin initially seemed destined for a life of achievement and respectability. As a teenager, he developed a passion for computers and secured a position with the Civil Aviation Authority, where colleagues knew him as a dedicated computer enthusiast. Colin's ambition led him to pursue higher education through an Open University master's degree in computing, but the allure of substantial financial rewards drew him toward investment banking, where he joined Deutsche Morgan Grenfell as a systems administrator working on major trading projects. His career trajectory was nothing short of impressive. By the 1990s, he was earning approximately £200,000 annually, a substantial income that afforded him a luxurious lifestyle. Colin's personal life seemed equally blessed. He married a woman named Angela, and together they built what many would consider an ideal family, welcoming 3 children into their comfortable world. For years, Colin appeared to have achieved the perfect balance of professional success and domestic happiness. However, the first cracks in Colin's perfect life appeared in 1999 when he was arrested in London for attacking his wife. This incident marked the beginning of a disturbing pattern of violent behaviour that would escalate dramatically over the following years. Despite this troubling event, the couple relocated to Glasgow, where Colin transitioned into property development, yet another venture in which he achieved considerable success. Colin's confidence in his abilities bordered on arrogance. He frequently boasted to friends about his various achievements, claiming he had never experienced failure in any endeavour. This overconfidence would prove to be a significant factor in his eventual downfall. Colin's life began to unravel as he developed severe addictions to alcohol and illegal substances. These dependencies fundamentally changed his personality, transforming him from a successful businessman into an increasingly violent and unpredictable individual. His behavior became erratic and dangerous. He attacked a man during a football match, and his substance abuse problems severely damaged his family relationships. The breaking point came in 2007 when Colin and Angela's marriage collapsed. Rather than accepting responsibility for his role in the breakdown, Colin's response was to escalate his violent behavior. He attacked Angela's sister in broad daylight on a public street. When an elderly bystander attempted to intervene and help the victim, Colin turned his fury on the Good Samaritan as well. His criminal activities expanded to include aggressive road rage incidents, including deliberately ramming Angela's vehicle. When law enforcement attempted to apprehend him for these crimes, Colin would flee the country to his expensive villa in Costa Blanca, using his wealth to evade justice. The most disturbing indication of Colin's complete psychological breakdown occurred in 2010 during a commercial flight. He physically attacked a fellow passenger while loudly declaring his identity and criminal affiliations, shouting threats about destroying the aircraft and committing horrific acts of violence against innocent families. This public display of criminal bravado marked his full transformation from respected professional to dangerous criminal. It was during this period that Colin formed an alliance with Philip Wade, an established figure in Glasgow's criminal underworld specializing in illegal substance distribution. This partnership would prove fatal for Lynda Spence. Colin's involvement with Lynda Spence began through a series of short-term loans totaling several £1,000s. By early 2011, Colin calculated that Lynda's debt to him had grown to approximately £80,000. To manage this situation, Lynda presented Colin with what appeared to be a lucrative investment opportunity centered around Stansted Airport. The proposed investment seemed legitimate and promised returns in the millions. Exactly the kind of opportunity that would appeal to Colin's ego and his desire to rebuild his wealth. Colin committed a substantial amount of money to this venture, believing he had identified another successful business opportunity. Unfortunately for Colin, this investment was an elaborate fraud designed to keep him satisfied, while Lynda struggled to manage her mounting debts to multiple dangerous creditors. When Colin realized he had been deceived, his reaction was explosive. The humiliation of being outsmarted by someone he considered inferior was unbearable for someone with his ego and reputation in criminal circles. Philip Wade had his own grievances with Lynda. While he was in custody awaiting trial, he had trusted her with £700 to purchase gifts for his children. Instead of fulfilling this request, Lynda had spent the money on herself, adding insult to Philip's existing financial injury. Faced with substantial financial losses and public humiliation, Colin decided that conventional debt collection methods were insufficient. He enlisted Philip Wade's assistance in developing a plan to kidnap Lynda and force her to repay their money through intimidation and physical coercion. On April 14, 2011, they executed their carefully planned abduction. They located Lynda, forcibly detained her, and transported her to a remote apartment where they had prepared a makeshift prison. They secured her to a chair using tape, covered her mouth to prevent screaming, and blindfolded her to increase her disorientation and terror. What followed was a 14-day ordeal that represents one of the most horrific crimes in Scottish criminal history. Colin had prepared extensively for this operation, bringing a collection of tools and devices specifically chosen to inflict maximum pain and suffering. This wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. It was a calculated torture campaign. The psychological manipulation began immediately. Colin and Philip used Lynda's mobile phone to send messages to her family and friends, creating the illusion that she was alive, and simply busy with business matters. This deception prevented anyone from reporting her missing during the crucial early days of her captivity. During her captivity, Lynda endured systematic torture that included being repeatedly beaten with a golf club, having lit cigarettes extinguished on her skin, being burned with a clothing iron, having her fingers and thumbs severed, her kneecaps shattered with blunt instruments, and having every toe crushed with pliers. Throughout this ordeal, Colin and Philip needed to attend to other criminal business, so they hired two small-time criminals, David Parker and Paul Smith, to guard Lynda during their absences. These men were each paid £10,000 to babysit Lynda, a sum that raises questions about how much Colin and Philip were truly expecting to recover from their victim. The substantial payment suggests this wasn't a desperate act by broke criminals, but a calculated business decision. The torture escalated as days passed without Lynda providing the financial satisfaction Colin demanded. He used a hot clothing iron to burn various parts of her exposed skin, holding the device against her flesh for extended periods. The systematic nature of these attacks demonstrates the calculated cruelty of Colin's approach. Perhaps most shocking was Colin's decision to use garden shears to amputate one of Lynda's fingers and her thumb. He then used blunt instruments to destroy her kneecaps and employed pliers to crush each of her toes individually. Throughout this nightmare, Lynda was forced to remain in the same chair, unable to move or address basic human needs. On April 26, 2011, Colin arranged a meeting with John Glenn, one of Lynda's other creditors, who was owed approximately £80,000. John had been making progress in recovering his money, having already received around £50,000 in repayments from Lynda's various schemes. During this meeting, Colin made an extraordinary claim. He insisted that the money John had recovered was actually Colin's money, and he demanded its immediate return. To emphasize his seriousness, Colin produced a plastic bag from his pocket and revealed its gruesome contents, Lynda's severed finger. Colin then displayed Lynda's business records and expressed skepticism about John's claims regarding the amount he had recovered. His threat was explicit and terrifying. "I've reviewed these numbers twice, and people are losing their thumbs. Don't lie to me. I want my money first, and if you don't cooperate, I will kill you." This macabre display had its intended effect. John agreed to Colin's demands, though he would later become a crucial witness for the prosecution. 2 days after his threatening meeting with John Glenn, Colin made the decision to end Lynda's life. After 2 weeks of systematic torture, her physical condition would have been catastrophic. Colin and Philip ended Lynda's suffering on April 28, 2011, more than 2 weeks after her initial disappearance. The method of execution was suffocation. Colin sealed Lynda's mouth with tape and blocked her nasal passages until she stopped struggling. Following her death, Colin and Philip methodically dismembered her body, removing her head and cutting her remains into multiple pieces for easier disposal. Their cleanup operation was extensive and professional. They thoroughly cleaned every surface of the apartment to eliminate DNA evidence and burned the chair that had served as Lynda's prison. They then transported her remains to an unknown location for final disposal, likely burying them in a remote area. Lynda's absence from her normal activities eventually raised concerns among her family and friends. Her parents, Patricia and Jim, reported her missing on May 13, 2011, nearly a month after her actual disappearance. They made public appeals for information, hoping someone had seen their daughter or could provide clues about her whereabouts.
And it's Father's Day this Sunday. Please let us know that you're safe and well. If anyone has information that can help Lynda, please contact us.
Initially, investigators theorized that Lynda might have fled the country voluntarily due to her involvement in various fraudulent schemes and her fear of retaliation from victims. This theory gained credibility when it was revealed that Lynda had been serving as a police informant, gathering intelligence on Albanian criminal organizations. However, as the investigation deepened, Colin Coats' name emerged repeatedly in connection with Lynda's business dealings and disappearance. Law enforcement began to suspect that she might be dead rather than simply hiding, and Colin became their primary suspect. The investigation faced significant challenges, as potential witnesses were too frightened of Colin's reputation for violence to provide cooperation. This fear was well-founded given Colin's history of brutal retaliation against those who crossed him. The case took a dramatic turn on August 16, 2011, when Colin again met with John Glenn to continue demanding repayment. John, still terrified by the earlier display of Lynda's severed finger, agreed to Colin's demands to avoid further violence. However, Immediately after this second threatening encounter, John Glenn made a crucial decision that would ultimately bring justice for Lynda. He went directly to the police and provided detailed information about Colin's threats, the severed finger, and his suspicions about Lynda's fate. This breakthrough gave investigators the evidence they needed to focus their efforts on Colin and Philip. They began building a comprehensive case while continuing their search for additional evidence and witnesses. On October 28, 2011, 6 months after Lynda's murder, police executed a search warrant on the apartment where she had been tortured and killed. Despite Colin and Philip's extensive cleanup efforts, forensic investigators discovered a single drop of Lynda's blood on the bathroom floor, crucial physical evidence linking the location to the crime. They also found the burned remains of the chair that had served as Lynda's prison, hidden in the building's garden area. This physical evidence corroborated the testimony that investigators were beginning to gather from other sources. David Parker and Paul Smith, the two men hired to guard Lynda during her captivity, were arrested and agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for reduced sentences. Their detailed testimony provided investigators with a comprehensive understanding of the 14-day torture ordeal and confirmed the roles of Colin and Philip in Lynda's murder. Colin and Philip were arrested and charged with murder, though both initially denied any involvement in the crime. However, the evidence against them was overwhelming. Mobile phone records place both men at the crime scene throughout the 14-day period when Lynda was being tortured. The subsequent trial became one of the longest murder trials in Scotland's history, with Colin Coats and Philip Wade, both 42 at the time, facing charges for the abduction, torture, and murder of the 27-year-old financial advisor. During the proceedings, Colin's background was thoroughly examined. When asked about his transformation from successful businessman to violent criminal, Colin attributed his downfall to the breakdown of his marriage, claiming that losing access to his 3 children had devastated him and led to his substance abuse problems. Despite Colin and Philip's continued protestations of innocence, the jury found both men guilty of murder. Colin received a life sentence with a minimum term of 33 years, while Philip was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 31 years. The judge's sentencing remarks were particularly damning regarding Colin, describing him as a highly ruthless and dangerous man who had been the driving force behind Lynda's torture and murder. The judge emphasized Colin's intelligence and previous success, making his choice to commit such brutal crimes even more inexcusable. Parker and Smith, who had served as guards during Lynda's captivity, each received 11-year sentences after pleading guilty to their roles in holding her hostage. Despite the successful prosecution, one crucial element remained unresolved: the location of Lynda's remains. Neither Colin nor Philip provided any assistance to authorities attempting to locate her body for proper burial. Over the years, police have conducted multiple searches based on various leads and tips. In 2022, officers carried out a detailed assessment of a remote area near Dunoon, Argyll, though this search was ultimately unsuccessful. Both Colin and Philip attempted to appeal their convictions, but these appeals were quickly rejected by the courts. In a surprising development in April 2023, 12 years after Lynda's murder, Colin finally admitted his guilt in a letter addressed to Lynda's mother, Patricia. In this correspondence, he wrote, "I feel compelled to clarify some background for Patricia Spence regarding the search for her daughter's remains. Lynda's mother's anger toward me is completely justified. I tortured and killed her daughter." Colin went on to promise his cooperation in helping police locate Lynda's remains, providing specific location information to assist in giving her family the closure they deserved through a proper burial. In his letter, Colin also revealed that he had acted alone in the actual murder, presenting Philip Wade with Lynda's body after the fact. He claimed to have recently apologized to Philip for involving him in the situation, though Philip reportedly rejected this apology. But here's what's puzzling. If Colin acted alone in the murder, why did both men receive such similar sentences? And why would Philip reject an apology if he was truly just an unwilling accomplice? Some questions about this case may never be fully answered. The legacy. The abduction, torture, and murder of Lynda Spence remains one of the most horrific crime stories in Scottish history, serving as a stark reminder of how financial desperation and criminal associations can lead to unimaginable tragedy. But it also raises uncomfortable questions about justice, redemption, and whether Colin's 2023 confession tells the whole truth. What do you think? Was Colin truly the sole mastermind, or is there more to Philip Wade's involvement than we know? And does it matter that Lynda herself was involved in criminal activities? Does that change how we view this case? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives on these complex cases. If you found this case as fascinating and disturbing as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into true crime's most puzzling cases. Despite Colin's 2023 confession and promise to assist authorities, Lynda's body has still not been recovered. Her family continues to wait for the closure that would come with being able to lay their daughter to rest properly. This case illustrates the dangerous intersection of financial fraud, organized crime, and personal vendettas. Lynda Spence, despite her own criminal activities, did not deserve the brutal fate that befell her. Her story serves as a warning about the escalating consequences that can result from involvement in criminal enterprises and the devastating impact of unchecked violence and revenge. The transformation of Colin Coats from successful professional to brutal murderer demonstrates how quickly a life can spiral out of control when addiction, ego, and criminal associations combine. His case remains a subject of study for criminal psychologists and law enforcement professionals seeking to understand the factors that can lead to such extreme criminal behaviour. Today, both Colin Coats and Philip Wade remain in Scottish prisons, serving their life sentences for this horrific crime. The search for Lynda Spence's remains continues, as her family holds on to hope that they will someday be able to give their daughter the dignified burial she deserves. But perhaps the most haunting question of all remains. In a world where everyone had secrets, everyone owed someone money, and everyone was capable of violence, who was really the victim and who was truly the villain? The answer might not be as clear-cut as it first appears.